I titled today's Neville Goddard conversation, Acres of Diamonds Mentality. Today's discussion is in contribution to the video that I released on Thursday, which is designed to help you gather some ideas together as to what you would like to achieve in 2022. Setting goals, setting visions. And I trust you found that video to be helpful. If you have not watched that, I'll put a link in the description to it. Today, to kick off this journey into realizing your visions or your goals, we're going to reflect upon a quote here from the Emerald Tablet and weave it to our Neville Goddard discussions in relation to mind. So it's stated, "So, O man, be sure the effects that ye bring forth are ever causes of more perfect effects. Know ye the future is never in fixation, but follows man's free will as it moves through the movements of time-space toward the goal where a new time begins. Man can only read the future through the causes that bring the effects. Seek ye within the causation, and surely ye shall find the effects." We want to recognize that we have within ourselves an infinite resource, which was articulated quite well in the story Acres of Diamonds by Russell Conwell. And I want to echo the story to stimulate our mind over to the realization that everything that we're looking for is found within ourselves. And in contribution to the video that I made on Thursday, some of our goals, some of our visions might be grounds for going into the mind within and bringing forth the riches that is within us as far as ideas, hunches, inspirations go for our creative endeavors, our entrepreneurial journey, or whatever it is that we desire to see brought forth. Now, the story of Acres of Diamonds goes that there was an individual who was interested in making millions of dollars. He owned a farm himself, and he wanted to make millions of dollars through mining for diamonds. Now, what he did was he sold the farm that he had, and he decided to invest the rest of his life really looking for, which ended up being unsuccessful, certain mines, diamonds, so he can bring riches. Now, the individual who bought his farm walked past a stream on the property, a small little river, and suddenly saw that there was this bright light that seemed to present itself from the bottom of the stream. So he reaches down and he picks up a stone, and he starts to look at it, tries to look at it a little bit more carefully, just through curiosity, and then decides to take it over to somebody who had a level of expertise in regards to stones. And upon reflection, really, on the stone, they uncovered that this particular stone was, in fact, a diamond. Now, he mentioned to this individual that there were many of these stones that he saw at the bottom of this stream. And it turns out then that the land that he had bought from the farmer who went out looking for diamonds was the acres of diamonds that that man was looking for. So the first farmer had actually owned the acres of diamonds, but he had sold it and went out looking elsewhere for diamonds. Now, this story is symbolic. It was said to have been a true story. What I like to do is I like to, every year and multiple times in a year actually, revisit the story to remind myself that once I commit to a vision, once we commit to a vision, we have everything we need right now within awareness. And what we want to do is value what we have right now. Recognize that part of the journey to realizing the vision is the recognition of the infinite riches that we have within our awareness right now. And another important lesson that I learned from the story is whatever opportunities that I have right now, I have the ability to mine these opportunities and mine them to a deeper degree, to bring forth riches in a way that would probably be distinct, but at the same time would also practice my ability to work with what Neville Goddard refers to as the spiritual mind. He says, to the natural mind, reality is confined to the instant called now. This very moment seems to contain the whole of reality. Everything else is unreal. To the natural mind, the past and the future are purely imaginary. In other words, my past, when I use the natural mind, is only a memory image of things that were. And to the limited focus of the carnal or natural mind, the future does not exist. The natural mind does not believe that it could revisit the past and see it as something that is present, something that is objective and concrete to itself. Neither does it believe that the future exists. The spiritual mind, which in our language we will call the fourth dimensional focus, the past, the present, and the future of the natural mind are a present whole. It takes in the entire array of sensory impressions that man has encountered, is encountering, and will encounter. So we want to remember this, because this is another way of saying that we have within ourselves this acres of diamonds. It is our mind. And if we value our mind and we say, look, within ourselves we can find the answers. Within the scope of all the opportunities that we have right now, we have everything that we need. Such as the case has been on my entrepreneurial journey. One of the things that I realized, and I was taught this by some of my mentors in the earlier stages, was whatever the opportunities that you have right now, value them even more so. Because if you do, you're going to find creative ways of working with them to produce the riches, to produce the success. And to look at it as something more like a puzzle, something that you would find to be joyous and flow-based. And you've heard me say this a number of times. The easiest way to do this is to just say, what is the one thing that I could do right now that has the greatest probability to produce the result? And to commit to doing that thing, because when you do that thing, what you find is other ideas, hunches, and inspirations show up, which will allow you to take whatever it is that idea is that you have and see it all the way to completion, or could bring forth even more innovation through the process. I remember when I started my IT business, one of the opportunities that I had was to build this point-of-sale system for restaurants in Toronto. One of my friends had introduced me to one of his friends, and they were starting a restaurant. And he said, would you be able to create a point-of-sale system for us? Now, some of you might be familiar with a point-of-sale system. They are in restaurants or bars where you see the wait staff punch in orders, and the orders go over to the kitchen, and they can coordinate who's sitting at what table, reservations, and so forth. Now, there was a software called Open Bravo. It's called open source software. And you have the ability to take this software, customize it, and even brand it in a way that you could label it as your own if you wanted to do that. And open source software has a number of contributors to it. And it's a project, and this particular one was on point-of-sale system, and also tying into something called enterprise resource planning. So what I decided to do was take this software, and I sat there for, I don't know how long, it was months, configuring while I was running other initiatives and so forth, aiming to grow my business, and customizing, working with some developers until we finally put together this point-of-sale system. Now, from this point-of-sale system, when we set it up from, and he opened up his bar, there was a number of other bar restaurant owners that would come by and talk to him, and he would mention this point of sale system. And something interesting ended up happening. Now, they would ask me if I would configure a point of sale system for them as well. That was one of the things they'd ask for. But my intent wasn't necessarily to build a business around point of sale systems, but rather to grow the IT business from the perspective of office business support, desktop support, managed services, etc. And what ended up happening was they introduced me to a number of business owners, because business owners tend to know other business owners. And those individuals became my clients. Now, this idea of the point of sale system showed up as a hunch and inspiration. And upon reflection of the Neville Goddard information here, it is that for some reason, once we commit to the vision, whatever it is that we're doing, even though we might not think that it leads to the success, if we get a hunch or inspiration to do that thing, it could very well lead to the success that we desire. That's because, as he refers to, in the spiritual mind, we see everything now. And because we tend to live more from what he refers to as the natural mind or the carnal mind, what we want to do is allow ourselves to receive the hunches, inspirations. We call this intuition, from the spiritual mind in which we are always connected to. And we receive these hunches within. That's why when we read a story like Acres of Diamonds, or any kind of information that has deep symbolic meaning like this, on how to value what we have right now, especially the mind, what happens is we automatically start to stimulate these hunches and inspirations. So what we want to do is keep at a level where we receive these hunches and inspirations. And the way to do this is to encourage this state of mind. We can call this the Acres of Diamonds mentality. And so he says, the only reason you and I are functioning as we are today and are not aware of this greater outlook is simply because we are creatures of habit. And habit renders us totally blind to what otherwise we could see. But habit is not law. It acts as though it were the most compelling force in the world, yet it is not law. So what we want is to release ourselves a little bit more so every day from rigid, linear thinking and get more into multidimensional thinking, the kind of thinking that is in alignment with the spiritual self. And one of the reasons why many of the spiritual texts, such as the Emerald Tablet, tend to communicate things in a poetic way or through metaphors or stories, is because this information bypasses the conscious mind, which perhaps might aim to see things too linear, and tap us more into the process of the spiritual mind, bypassing the conscious and going right into the subconscious to stimulate these ideas, hunches, and inspiration. Now, the interesting thing is that, like my story, upon reflection, I realized that you just know in the moment when you've got one of those ideas, when you've got one of those hunches, those inspirations. And if we try to break it down and analyze it and look at it from a linear perspective, it might not make any sense. What we want to do is move forward with that inspiration. Now, the beautiful thing about the principles that Neville has discussed with us is that by maintaining the feeling of the wish fulfilled, by making the ideal first-class concept of self state of mind a priority, what you will find is you will trust yourself to a higher degree, and you'll automatically move forward with the hunches and inspirations. And you won't necessarily second guess or doubt yourself. but you will feel this inner knowingness that you know that that's the thing you have to do. So let's reflect back on the quote here from the Emerald Tablets. It says, "So, O men, be sure the effects that ye bring forth are ever causes of a more perfect effects. Know ye, the future is never in fixation, but follows man's free will as it moves through the movements of time-space toward the goal where a new time begins." So notice it is stated time-space. From what we select or what we think or what we imagine, we move towards the goal where a new time begins. And it further states, man can only read the future through the causes that bring the effects. And the causes are our attitudes of mind, our mentality. So when we have a goal, when we have a vision, what we want to encourage is this acres of diamonds mentality, to recognize that everything that we need, we have right here, right now. And we want to just stimulate this. Just maybe go through reading Acres of Diamonds or listening to certain kinds of stories or information of others who, in ways that weren't necessarily consciously known, they were able to follow a certain thread. And they followed this thread, and on the surface, it might not have made logical sense. But when it led to the destination via the Bridge of Incidents, when we look back and reverse engineer it, it makes total sense. But in that moment, what the individual had identified with was something that was revealed from a state of mind, an idea, a hunch, an inspiration from a state of mind, a mentality, that all things exist now in the eternal now, which is related over to the spiritual man, as he states, the spiritual man, which in our language we call the fourth dimensional focus. The past, the present, and the future of the natural mind are a present whole. It takes the entire array of sensory impressions that man has encountered, is encountering, and will encounter. That right there is the Acres of Diamonds. Because if everything exists to the spiritual mind in the moment, then the fastest, flow-based, easiest way is revealed in the moment right now. So we don't discard because the thing is unpleasant. We revise it. Revising it, we repeal it. And as we repeal it, it projects itself on the screen of space, bearing witness to the power within us, which is our wonderful human imagination. Don't condemn yourself for the state into which you have fallen. If you don't like it, move into another. Don't feel sorry for yourself, for if you do, you will make that state a habit. So what we want is to enter more into a state of mind that is one with this Acres of Diamonds mentality. And the way we do this is to see things from the perspective, fourth dimensional thinking, of in harmony and in contribution to our vision. One of the most important things we want to keep into consideration, we don't want to encourage thoughts that we're not going to bring forth our vision. Because if we begin to think from that perspective and dwell in that perspective, then we could end up seeing things reflected on the screen of space in which we interpret it from that perspective and continue down that thread. Because the screen of space is revealing to us what is within ourselves, and based on what we see on the screen of space, we can either further identify with it or we can relate it over to what's true in harmony to the vision. In other words, let's go back to my example. I start working on the project, and I understand that I work with this information to a greater level of depth and presence right now. That was back in 2009 that story is from, with the point of sale system. One thing that I recognized is that some way, somehow, we were going to make that point of sale system work, and it was going to lead into other opportunities. And while there might have been setbacks and things that didn't go as planned, we were trying to set up certain kinds of code in there, and it was messing up some of the other codes, which was causing other aspects of the software to not operate properly. We want to see that as something that encourages us. And we want to remember that the five sensory experience, or as he says here, the screen of space, is reflecting back our interpretations of how we relate to what it is that we're working on. So we have in the moment right there the ability to practice maintaining the state of mind by interpreting what it is, rather than seeing it as failure, into an opportunity to turn it into a result, some way, somehow. And that's a form of what he says, revising it. So we don't discard because the thing is unpleasant, as in, oh no, this is not going to work. We revise it. Let's go back into the state of mind, which is one with the vision. And then from that perspective, some way, somehow, we're able to work with that information in a way that produces results because we value the acres of diamonds within. So I put together three important elements that we can keep into consideration on our journey now as we move towards realizing our visions that we put together in our last video. Number one, the relationship with mind is reflected on the screen of space. So this is about building a relationship with ourselves and recognizing from the perspective of acres of diamonds that you are, right now, standing on your own acres of diamonds. And it starts in your mind from that appreciation and acceptance that it is here right now as we relate over to the spiritual mind. Number two, the subconscious mind reveals ideas, hunches, and inspirations to identify with. Different ideas, hunches, and inspirations you receive within yourself. You find them within via a mentality that's akin to the acres of diamonds. So shine your light on these diamonds and express them onto the screen of space. That's a poetic way of saying appreciate these opportunities, value these opportunities, work with these opportunities, and see them all the way till completion. Number three, as we engage with the screen of space, we express our diamonds onto it. See aspects of the screen of space as your ideal. So, when you get a hunch or inspiration and you move forward with it, there could be some more theater that plays out based on past thinking, disempowering, limiting interpretations, and so forth. See this as an opportunity to purify the mind. Release from that thinking. Because, as we've been discussing, we are transcendent to the thinking. The thinking is not us. We don't become that thinking unless we consciously decide to identify with that thinking. And what we want to identify with is the acres of diamonds thinking. Whatever it is that we know we're working on right now, that is where the opportunity is. And if we feel discouraged or we see that our attention goes onto aspects of what we are doing and we see it from a limiting or disempowering perspective, what we can do is we can change our interpretations to those aspects. Or we can note those things down and reflect upon them at the end of the day. I call this cause and effect reflections, as also inspired by the Emerald Tablets. Seek ye within the causation, and surely ye will find the effects. We not only see this all throughout Neville's information, but we also see this all throughout personal development information, all throughout the history of the personal development space. Seek ye within the causation, and surely ye will find the effects. So we find it within ourselves. And we see this as an opportunity. Now, when we find these interpretations within ourselves, we change these interpretations. And then we allow our diamonds to express from within us the ideas, hunches, and inspiration onto reality as success. We reveal our diamonds in reality. So again, number one, the relationship with mind is reflected on the screen of space. So see yourself as standing right now on your acres of diamonds. Recognize that you have everything that you need right now. You are complete right now. Recognize that from that perspective, in this moment, in the eternal now, the point in time, The spiritual self will reveal via the subconscious mind ideas, hunches, and inspirations. And you probably already have them. You might just end up as a result of returning to the ideal state of mind just by recognizing that you are right now on your acres of diamonds, or perhaps even hearing the story of acres of diamonds. You go back into the state of mind. You know exactly what it is you have to do, or not do for that matter. We call this Wu Wei. So we go back to engaging with the screen of space, and we allow ourselves to express onto the screen of space the diamonds within. And if for whatever the reason may be, we find ourselves having fears, doubts, indecision, insecurities, we want to recognize that we aren't those things unless we want to identify with those things. And we change our interpretations. We remain inspired in relation to our vision. And we also recognize that how we react to the screen of space is revealing about ourselves, our thinking process. And then through the revelation of the cause, which is the thinking process, and the effects, our relationship with, we can change these relationships because the thoughts, the beliefs, the interpretations, the perspectives, they only appear fixed if we allow ourselves to remain fixed within to those perspectives. And one of the easiest ways to do it, as he suggests here, is don't condemn yourself for the state in which you have fallen. Reactivity state, shame state, insecurity state, indecision state. If you don't like it, you can move into another. And when he says don't feel sorry for yourself, for if you do, you will make the state a habit, he's saying don't shame yourself or be difficult with yourself to the point where you overthink, perhaps from the perspective of perfectionism. Because we know that we are divine perfection right now. And overthinking in relation to perfectionism is a thought process which we can release from. One of the best ways to do this as well is to dedicate time every day, such as meditation, going for a walk, or do things that you really enjoy and love doing. Because then what you do is you release from a lot of the heavy thinking that might be there. And then actually find that automatically what's expressed through you is the ideas, hunches, and inspirations in those moments. For me, for example, on my journey, I had challenging projects that I was working on, which in a way seemed like a trap. And then I remember going for a walk and then getting an inspiration because subconsciously I identified with the acres of diamonds. I get an inspiration, and then all of a sudden I know how and what to do in regards to that project to see it all the way to completion in an accelerated manner. And that's one of the important aspects that we want to recognize when it comes to the spiritual self, because the natural mind may see things from a very linear, structured, and I would say overly structured perspective, to the point where the person becomes rigid in their thinking. And when working with this Neville Goddard information, we want to encourage what we've been discussing all throughout, which is fluidity of mind, lightheartedness. And to encourage this lightheartedness, we want to actually feel throughout the day, and through qualitatively observing, feeling, if we really are in the state of mind that's one with the vision, really are in the flow. And as a result of being in it, what you'll notice is that everything that is being discussed in this video becomes automatic. Because this is a way of being. What we're really doing is we're talking about a way of being. So it could be something that could stimulate and allow you to gauge as you go through your days that you are, in fact, in that state of being that we call ideal state of mind, flow state of mind, from a place of love. Seek ye within the causation, and surely ye shall find the effects. So we can find the causation within and understand perhaps inaccurate thinking and change that thinking around. And we can also at the same time practice representing the causative state of mind of acres of diamonds, and that you right now are standing on your own acres of diamonds. and you have the ability to value it more so every day as you continue down this journey to realizing your vision. So I trust you found this to be helpful, useful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an affirmation to further encourage it. You can say, I recognize that I am right now standing on my acres of diamonds. It is the infinite world within that has the ability to reveal to me hunches, inspirations, and ideas to bring forth my vision from the perspective of love and ease. As a result, I find myself in the state of mind that's one with the vision. From there, I know what to do and what not to do, and I proceed down the journey, further encouraging the acres of diamond state of mind. I then realize that everything that I desire is within me. Eternity exists within me, past, present, and future, and the infinite combination and permutation of the relationship between past, present, and future of eternity, which is buried within me, is expressed in a way that I understand the intuitive hunches, inspirations, and I'm able to automatically express them and see them all the way to completion via my artistic expression, via my entrepreneurial innovation, via living life from the ideal state of mind, which is reflective of my first-class concept of self as I bring forth a journey to realizing my vision from a place of wu-wei, love, and flow. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.